We're continuing our work with using graphs of functions and function notation to find values of a function. And take a look at this example that we've got here. Looks kind of like a half of a circle to me. It's definitely a function. It does pass the vertical line test. If you recall, we had a full circle before as an example, and that was not a function. Here it is from a previous video where when we had the full circle, then that was not a function because it didn't pass the vertical line test. Okay, I just wanted to remind you of that. So what we did is that because we wanted to use this circle but have a function, we cut it in half and used one half of the circle. So let's go back to that. Okay, and the first value that we're asked to find is f of 0. So again, what are we asked to find? We're finding the y value when x is 0. The y value. So this notation, f of 0, means find the y value when x is 0. So I'm going to 0 and up here. And what's the y value there? Well, I can tell that we've got a scale here that's by 2's. That looks like, well, the y value there looks like 5, doesn't it? So f of 0 is 5. Okay, next we're asked to find f of negative 3. So negative 3 looks to be like right about there, doesn't it? And f of negative 3 is this endpoint here of our circle. And the y value when x is negative 3 is positive 2. F of negative 3 is positive 2. Okay, next they want us to find f of 3. So we're coming over to the right hand side looking for the y value when x is 3. So f of 3 looks to be also 2. Okay, good. All right, what else? Find the values for x when f of x equals 0. So we're looking for x values. Find the values for x when y is 0. Okay, let's go back to the graph. Y is 0. Uh-oh. What do you notice? Yeah, this graph, we don't have a y value of 0. Now, based on previous work, what that means is that the range of this function does not include 0, right? Do you see that? There's no y coordinate of 0 indicated in our graph. So that means we're going to have to say does not exist for D. None. Or D and E does not exist. We do not have any x values that have a y of 0. Okay, then it says find the x-intercepts. Oh, well, how do we find the x-intercepts of any graph? Yeah, we set y to 0 and find x, right? But wait a minute, didn't we just try doing that in the previous problem? Didn't we try to find the x's that had a y equal to 0? Yep, D and E does not exist. No, none. No x-intercepts. Let's take a look at the graph again. Verify that. Yep. Here's my x-axis, and the graph definitely does not cross the x-axis, so does not exist. Okay, next. Find the y-intercepts. Okay, let's go look at the graph. This is now asking us to set x to 0 and find y, right? And find y. So we're going to look at the y-axis, aren't we, on our graph. So here's the graph. Ah, it's right there, isn't it? This point again. So our y-intercept is 0, 5. Okay, let's write that down. So 0, 5 for the y-intercept. It's only the 1. Okay, find the domain. Write it in interval notation. Find the domain. Let's go back to the graph. So recall from our previous video, and if you didn't get a chance to watch that previous video, do so, okay, on domain and range. But we are going to look for the values of x that are represented in this graph, and we're going to look for the leftmost point, going to the rightmost point, and describe it in terms of x. And the leftmost point is this one. Leftmost, I'm going to put LM just for a little hint for myself. And our rightmost point is over here, rightmost. And we have everything in between. So what's the smallest x in this graph is at negative 3. And the largest x is at positive 3. So our domain is the interval of all x's that lie between negative 3 and 3. And we include the two endpoints because the graph includes them. Then what's the range? Well, now we're going to look at the lowest point to the highest point, and we're going to describe in terms of y. So The lowest point is, there's two of them, aren't they? It's these two endpoints. So now these are lowest. And our highest point is the y-intercept, isn't it? That's our highest point. And we're describing the interval or in terms of y. So that y value at the lowest point is 2, bracket because we include it, and that y value at the highest point is 5, bracket because we include it. You starting to get an idea of how to find these domains and range? Again, practice is key.